Today's episode is brought to you by Fire Facilities. Make training count with their custom-made all-steel live fire training facilities. Their made-in-the-USA towers and burn rooms are the best for preparing, responding, and surviving the challenges you face every day. So I know for a fact you're from Texas, and if you listen to my podcast, there's two areas in this country. I'm not saying there's bad firefighters everywhere else. I'm just saying there's two parts of the country that always come up as rock solid firefighters, instructors, all that stuff. And it's Pacific Northwest and it's Texas. So what part of Texas are you in? East Texas?
I'm like Northeast Texas. So I'm about maybe an hour from the Louisiana border. So to explain,
that could be dangerous.
Hey, we got some good Louisiana brothers who do a lot of training out over there. So it's a good working relationship. But if you were to draw a straight line between Dallas and Shreveport, we're like right here closer to Shreveport than we are to Dallas. So that's our region where I'm at.
There's a lot of, I call them landscapers, firefighters that are changing the landscape of the fire service for the next generation. And there's so many of them in Texas. Now, I'm not from Texas, but I started my career in Texas as a firefighter in the military. I know you're thinking I'm a hero, and I appreciate that. And I am. But every time my wife hears me say that, she's like, oh, shut up. But no, seriously, I mean, we could sit here and name off all kinds of people, Devin Craig, Jacob Johnson, Mo Davis, on, and Eddie Steele, on and on and on. And there's just something in Texas, in the Pacific Northwest. I tell you what do you, I love to ask you all, what is it about Texas that makes such good, I want to say good firefighters, but passionate firefighters as well? So what is it about that area? Is it in the water? Is it the weather?
I guess to try and pinpoint that, if you want to go back, Texas, you talk to anyone that doesn't live in Texas, they think of cowboys, right? And so now you put that translation to the fire service. The kind of Texan mentality is we have grit, we love to work, we still fully embrace that blue collar aspect of it, and we just want to help. We're the howdy y'alls, you know what I mean? We're very Southern hospitality, so that translates into our work as well. And a lot of us just want to get better. And a lot of it starts on like a local level. I'm repping NV Fire Rescue shirt right now. They have great things going on, and they just started off on a small regional level, and then it was just an auto tech class. Then it branched into an engine class and a RIT class and a search class, and they're now traveling around to these other conferences across America, just spreading the good word with tactics backed up by data. And that's just one example. Like you mentioned, Devin Craig with Train or Die. He's been doing that for a while and just pouring the good word into it. And I think the humility, yes, there's a lot of, prideful Texans, which is nothing to be proud about doing what you love, but they're also humble at the same time. They don't think of themselves as anyone bigger than the next person next to them. You know what I mean? They love the job. If there's a lot of people pushing them, okay, we'll help you guys out, but don't look at me, look at the message. And I hope I'm delivering the right message. And that's what I got to credit a lot of the Texas firemanship too.
It's special. It's unique. And every time I talk to a Texan or Texas firefighter, it's that humility. Like if you're not from Texas, you think Texas is this big boisterous, it's us versus everybody else. And I guess some of that's true, but I got to tell you, with the firefighters, it's all about how can I help another firefighter? How can I help my brother firefighters? And you guys get your names out there. So I think that's amazing. This is a true story. It's going to sound made up, but when I first got assigned to Wichita Falls, Texas, drive down Arkansas, and I'm cutting across for the very first time. We come to the very first road stop. Me and my first wife at the time, she was asleep, so she was hanging upside down in the back of the car like a bat. No, I'm just kidding. She doesn't sleep. We get out, and there's a guy there, and I can see his face clear as a bell. But as soon as we get out, I don't know who he was talking to or what the situation was, but he grabbed his cowboy hat, he slapped his thigh, and he gave out the biggest yeehaw you've ever heard, not making it up. So my first wife looks at me, and I look at her, and I'm like, I guess we could turn around and go back to Kentucky.
Where are we at?
But that was my Texarkana. Where are we at? What is this? And then obviously we were there longer. It's pretty impressive. Also, I might argue some of the best food I've ever had has been in Texas.
We can cook around here now. We can put pounds on you. It can be very challenging.
If you see somebody thin in Texas, chances are they're not from Texas. I'll tell you that right now.
That is
Oh
fair.
my goodness.
We judge other states by their barbecue, for the record.
All right. So aside from Texas, what's the best barbecue?
Ooh. Honestly, I'd have to say Tennessee. I like me some Tennessee barbecue. When I went up there on a family trip, found a little local joint, and it was really good. They delivered well, but it's gotta have that soul flavor, that soul food to it, and you'll be good.
Yeah, yeah. We did a class in it was Olathe, Kansas, and for lunch they took us to Joe's Barbecue, and I'd push my mom down a flight of stairs for some Joe's now. That stuff is really, really good. But anyway, I don't want to keep you too long on this, but I do want to talk about some of the great things you do, right?
Okay.
So you do a lot of great things. And one of the first ones I want to jump into is Next Rung. We've had Blake on here before. I've had Blake actually Zoom in for a leadership class for my department. I am very impressed with Next Rung peer support, and you're part of that. So, can you tell us a little bit about that for those who don't know?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, Blake is an outstanding man. He is definitely on fire for God, and it really shows in everything he does. And I love that about him.
Mm-hmm.
And with Next Rung, we do keep it very faith based because of that reason alone. You got to understand that if you need the help, you've got to be able to submit and humble yourself to acknowledge you need the help. And when you have a relationship with Christ or you start to walk in alignment with him, you'll see how a lot of his teachings and just being a Christian parallels into the fire service and other areas of life. And so Blake and I were talking for a while, just different things. We had a little Bible study group too. I don't want to say little, but we've had some Bible study group threads that we have other firemen in reaching out. And he just asked me when he said, would you be willing to be a peer support member for Next Rung? I said, absolutely, love that. And so for those that aren't aware, Next Rung is just that, a peer support group, but the peer panels that make up the team of Next Rung, they're all first responders. They all get it.
Mm-hmm.
If you've had a horrible substance abuse problem, we've got guys that have overcome that. Or if you've been through horrible divorces and how the fire service has impacted your marital status, we've got individuals that overcome that. And so there's not a problem, I could say, that a caller calling in just to vent or need some help, that there's someone that hasn't related to him. And so it's just like we're having now, Jake, just a conversation of, well, hey, what's going on today? What happened? And 9 times out of 10, a lot of these people, and I'm sure you've seen it in your career too, they just need someone to talk to. They don't need an ordained person from a figurehead from their department to say, you need to talk to this person now. Well, they're already reserved. They're guarded. So when they finally come to that, point in their self-reflection of, I need to reach out to somebody, and they may not know who I am. It's not someone from the department who may look at me a little different, which it's still good to have in-department stuff. But for those that have those issues of wanting to reach out to someone locally, they get that text, and they don't have to have a phone call. If they're better off formulating their thoughts and send it through a text, and we can text through it and follow up, awesome. But also at the same time, Next Rung is able to give you that outlet to more professional help in your area if you need that too. And we'll actually get in touch with your department, of course, all consensual, but we'll get in touch with them and give you the actual help you need if it's beyond just peer-to-peer help. But a lot of people just need to get stuff off their chest, and that really helps knowing that you got people that can relate to you, hearing you out.
Absolutely. And what about for people of other beliefs or other denominations? They can still contact Next Rung, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. It doesn't have, it's not just a Christian only thing, if that makes sense. Just your brother or sister that just needs help. You're going to get someone that cares and understands. And we're all on call. So I'm on call once a week. So we have rotating days, 7 days of the week with our teams. And whoever comes in, we're committed to that day. So if you call in and it takes you 5 hours to get everything off your chest, that's fine. That's what I'm doing. I voluntarily accepted to be on call today to help you out with your problems. And it's just, Blake's doing so many wonderful things with that organization, and it's all nonprofit. So that's the other big thing about it. So, they could always use the donations as well to keep this movement alive, to further help impact those that need the help.
So we need some people that are listening right now to put in their mental checklist to donate a few bucks. It doesn't have to be your whole paycheck. But, if you're one of those guys and girls that like to talk about brotherhood and sisterhood, this is a way that you can absolutely show it. So where can they go to make some donations.
They just go on to nextrung.com, or I believe it's .org. But also they can just send me a personal message too, and reach out to Blake's Net. We're all open individuals to talk to, and yeah, we're very easy to get a hold of. But definitely check out their website. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, so there's easy avenues to go and say, hey, you know what? I think this can go to somebody, or this can go to some help, because they're limited with the resources and stuff like that as well, like anyone else that's nonprofit. But this is such a huge mission, because, as I know we're going to talk about it too at some point this morning, but the mental health, now that we're getting the awareness on it, how can we help further this? We're breaking down that egotistical and bravado masculine manner when it comes to help. So now that we're expecting that, so it's a good mission.
Absolutely. Do you know who I think about, though, a lot when I think about Next Rung? And he was on the podcast. I love this guy. He is the king of adversity. He is the most positive person I think I've ever talked to, no matter what comes his way, is Richard Wiggins. Now, Wiggins also works for Next Rung.
Yes.
And he's recently moved from, I don't know who moves from Hawaii to the mainland, but he did. And, I tell you what, there's times where I'm down, or it's a bad day, whatever it is, and I'll be scrolling through social media and I'll see that guy and I will read what he's posting, and if you're not lifted up, if you're not more positive after that, I mean, he is really affecting people. So big shout out to Richard Wiggins. Love the guy to death.
Absolutely, he's a key member, man. He's very inspiring.
He absolutely is. And we'll talk a little bit about mental health here. I love the movement that I'm seeing in the fire service towards mental health. It's okay to not be okay. For me, when I came on 30 years ago, the conversations I had were very simple. They were this to me as the new guy. It's okay. You're going to see some stuff. You got to bury that stuff down, man. Nobody wants to hear it. Don't take it home. Your wife didn't join the fire department. Your kids didn't join.
Right.
So you got to tamp that stuff down. And at the time, it made sense. We're talking late 90s for me, I guess. And, you see things. I don't care what department you're on, and I don't care. It doesn't have to be the world's worst car wreck. It could be something as simple as an older female struggling to just move. Right. There's whatever it is that hurts you in today's world, and this is what I love, is talk about it, which goes back to Next Rung. Next Rung, maybe you just want to talk about a run you saw the night before, but there's nothing wrong with having this affect you. Matter of fact, I would argue it makes you a better firefighter to be able to communicate with the right people about this stuff. I myself, it was past September, I was diagnosed with PTSD. Everything came to a head for me where it was too specific. I always describe it like this: in a complete emotional and physical breakdown, which I've never had before. It wasn't about me being super sad. It was me not being able to control things. So I've since been in therapy, and I love therapy. Don't get me wrong. I highly recommend it for everybody. But I wish I had gone to Next Rung first, and I tell you why. It's exactly what you said. I don't have to if I'm talking to you, I don't have to explain about forcing a door or a car wreck or a fire. You know what it is. Every time I go to a therapist and I bring up something new, even though this therapist works with first responders, I'm her first firefighter. It's like I have to preface everything.
Right.
So it's okay not to be okay, and you got to reach out and get this help. So, a big thank you to you, Blake. Was it Charlie Brown? I love that name.
Rob Arrieta's another big one up there too. That's really overseeing the operations. It's they're very dialed in. They're very squared away. They're organized. It's extremely structured. And the more and more awareness, the more and more that calls come in. And I'm not saying that we have a mental health crisis, but at the same time, more people are finally coming out of the shadows saying, "Hey, I've been dealing with this." Or you also have the firefighters that are hearing about Next Rung, and they're like, I ran a bad call. I don't know how I feel about it, but maybe I should just call. And hey, I just ran a fatal wreck. I'm okay, but I don't. What happens? Do I just need to call? Right. And it's okay to have that preventative maintenance too. And to your point,
that's a great way to put it. I love that preventative maintenance. I love it. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, you're totally good. Because there is I believe in a lot of controlling the controls, and if we can control it, hey, A lot of other people have been really affected by this type of call. I never had it until yesterday. I'm just gonna go ahead and reach out, like, hey, is there something unbeknownst, or maybe 2 weeks later now it's really starting to bother me, it's sinking in and stuff like that. I've already established rapport. I've reached out, like, hey man, I know I talked to you a couple weeks ago about this, but now it's kind of starting to bother me. Okay, well, let's talk about what are some potential triggers, or what can we do to get our mind off of that, because we're learning to process things that we have not experienced, and not a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people have been in that position until they're in that position. So when you have a
Right.
peer support panel that's been there, they've also sought out help, and now they know how to deliver that help to someone else. It's just that whole giving back what's been given to you, and it's brilliant. I love what they're doing.
It is amazing, and one of the things that I've learned about mental health in the fire service, it's an invisible illness.
Yes.
So, I got to be honest with you. I have not been. Excuse me. I'm just guess I'm stuck in my throat. I have not been treated very well by my department and staff um, when it comes to me being off for PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of don't blame them in a lot of ways, simply because it is an invisible illness. Before this hit me, I know for a fact I looked at things differently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all this to say, if you are not in need for mental help, uh, look at others around you and don't judge, but try to help. Um, I think it's very important. It's one thing to go have shoulder surgery and go into the firehouse for a visit and you're all wrapped up. People can see that you're injured.
Right.
But when it's an invisible illness like PTSD, depression, God forbid, suicidal ideations,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, be there for your brother and sister. That word brotherhood and sisterhood, people use it so much as a noun and not a verb. It's an action. It's something you do. It's not something you say, right? You got to put action behind it.
Right.
So one of the ways you can do that is being able to recognize some of these things and be able just to not make, if nothing else, if just don't make it worse. I've had people that I've worked with who literally made things worse for me, literally went out of their way to make things worse. So I feel like people, if nothing else, they need to take that, learn from the mistakes of others, and just, if nothing else, ask questions. And if you can't get behind it, just don't do anything to make it worse. It's just that simple.
Right. And if you're a crew member that sees red flags, don't be forceful, because that's a big deterrent, and you can unintentionally kind of trigger a backslide on that. Like if you see
Right.
repetitive patterns, some red flags, like, hey, you need to get help. You need to get help. You think you're doing it with love, but that's more or less going to anger and agitate that individual. And then you've just blocked off any rapport building potential there by just doing that unintentional action. So that's another big
Yeah,
thing.
and you're going to force these people to mask even more.
Yep.
Like if you're telling them, "Hey, man, I noticed this, this, and this," and you're that aggressive, they're
Mm-hmm.
going to learn to. I mean, that's one thing that people with mental health issues learn to do very well is mask. Only show the side they want to show you. So, yeah, absolutely,
And
absolutely.
to your point to that, with the mental health and the self betterment and going through that, the one thing that goes hand in hand, which may step on some toes of some listeners, however, you can't fight depression with a depressant. In other words, you can't just keep drinking. You can't just keep
Yeah.
flirting with the alcohol and the social drinker. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. But then next thing you know, you never get that clarity. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a big snowball. There's a bunch of research out there on that topic too, if that interests you. But it's hard to deal with mental health if you don't stay in a sober state of mind. And you'll never truly be able to overcome things because you constantly mask it. And your body's not able to interpret or process with clarity what you went through because you keep putting depressants into your body. So just kind of a give and take there. I know the fire service loves their
Oh,
alcohol,
absolutely.
but if you want to get
Yeah.
better, you might need to
Well,
get sober for a little bit.
and it doesn't happen like you don't wake up going, you know what? I have mental health. I'm gonna start doing drugs and drinking too much starting today. It
Right.
creeps in. It creeps in, and if you're more aware of your feelings, like what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, and then you can tie it into maybe what you're doing. For example, drinking, right? Yeah, it's perfect. If you find yourself, whenever you think about the firehouse or runs or whatever, all of a sudden you have a craving for a beer or whatever, I've nothing wrong. I love beer. big
Right.
fan of beer, right? But I try to be careful with it for that exact reason. You
Hmm.
just never know. And being that self aware and knowing what your triggers are, where you are emotionally. And I'm not saying, give up beer or nothing, but there's also things you can do that are positive that are addictive.
Yeah.
Going to the gym, physical fitness.
Hmm.
For me, it's running. I like to run. So after so long, now it's like in the mornings when I go running, that kind of gets me going for the rest of the day. I'm more unlikely to have a down moment or need something else or whatever. So, don't be afraid to switch maybe some of those things, um,
Sure.
instead of alcohol or drugs or whatever. Maybe work out or go for a run or just do something, go fishing, whatever it is. But
Right.
you can replace some of these habits with better
Some
habits.
kind of positive, tangible habit, like you're talking about, absolutely. Because now you're being productive, and now you're forcing yourself to think about what you're going through, versus just sitting there and watching whatever in the abyss and enjoying your crutch, so to say, when you're dealing with that. So you're right. Because that was me last year.
Absolutely.
I'm going on 1 year sobriety. I couldn't handle alcohol anymore. Just it was not for me.
Really?
Hmm. Yep. So there were some things that I had some underlying calls and whatnot, and a lot of backstory with different things from really rough relationships, and I would mask it with alcohol. Well, then everywhere I went with friends or whatnot, it always involved around let's have one, let's have one, let's have one. Well, that having
Right.
one would come home, and then I was not driving, so I would stay home, and I could not control drinking. And I knew that, but I was not done with how it was making me feel numb with everything that I was trying to deal with. So it was that kind of vicious
Right.
cycle. And then finally, it was just enough. Enough is enough. And my wife, God love her, she gave me that moment of clarity talk too. Like, Chris, you need to see what you're doing. We've got 6 kiddos in the house, and they're seeing daddy at nighttime. Let's talk about some things. And you're right,
Right.
and things need to change. So that addictive personality to the alcohol turned into the working out, the physically releasing it. I was big and spent several years in boxing and MMA, and I miss those days. But when you have a football team for a family, you got to prioritize finances. And so that was one of my luxuries to get rid of, to make sure that family provision was still at the forefront. And so now it became running, working out here, and building it up. And now I've got clarity. I can live happier when I see other people that have the same red flags that I was presenting myself. I'm like, hey man, is everything good? And you always just do it one on one. That's the big thing. These interventions, oh, that's a crash course for disaster sometimes. Like, it has to
Yeah.
be a one on one, in my opinion. I believe you're gonna get more results in more of a one on one intimate relationship if you just like, hey, come talk to me, man. I've been noticing a little change the past few tours. Everything good? Yeah, you can talk to me. And then keep that between y'all. So it's just one of those things. It's peer to peer, and I love it. There's ways to get the help out there. You can still be a type A badass and still say, "Hey, I need to talk to somebody."
Well, Brandon Dryman from Indy came down. He's an amazing, amazing person who deals with mental health, and he himself tells you about his drinking problems. When he came and gave a class down in my department, he said something that just broke my brain. He said, he goes, everybody knew I had a drinking problem but me.
Mm,
He's like, I had no idea. He goes, so the person that has the problem is usually the last person to find out. And that really got me thinking. I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, you're doing a lot of damage to your family and friends completely unaware that you're doing it. And then when it hits you, to your point about an intervention, if God forbid I should ever have to have an intervention from, somebody have it for me, I
sure,
think I would hate it. I
yeah,
would rather, like, my lovely bride, she's very honest. And I would much rather her or a friend at the fire department say, hey man, we're noticing this, right?
hmm,
As opposed to walking in a room with 10 people, pieces of paper, and
yeah,
how you've ruined their life. I mean, yeah, I think there's better ways to do it. I think the way alcoholism is treated in this, you and me may fight on this one, okay? And you mentioned, lifting and doing martial arts and stuff. I don't want you to be afraid or intimidated of me, but I did 3 push-ups 2 months ago. So, and I'm very uncoordinated. So I'm just gonna put it out there.
I believe in you,
Uh,
Jake. I'm proud of you.
one of the things about alcoholism to me is in the United States, it's an all or nothing proposition. If you have a drinking problem, you have to stop drinking. You have to submit to a higher power. Now, my thing is looking at over in Europe and stuff, they have a moderation thing, right? So I I had me personally, I throw in a proactive thing. I do not think I'm anywhere near that yet, but I do a proactive thing where every year I do 100, now it's 125
Nice.
days with no alcohol.
Okay.
And I time it for the winter because that is when there's a lot of social events because I want to disconnect alcohol with social events.
Sure.
So, you have Christmas, January, birthday parties. There's so much that goes on in the winter for me. So I don't drink at all, even a little bit. I don't drink it. I don't do none of that stuff. And it's my way of being a little proactive. And it all stems from many years ago. I had shoulder surgery and I was drinking every day. I wasn't even getting drunk. I had 2 or 3 beers, 4 beers, sometimes 9 beers. I don't know. But I remember thinking, man, if I retire and I do this, I'm just going to be an alcoholic. I'm going to ruin my retirement. I'm going to spend all this time, working towards this awesome time where I can retire and just be an alcoholic. So I started doing the 100-day, now 125 days.
That's a good idea.
And I always like to tell, and this is, because I don't want to ever be put in a position to where I have to decide one or the other. So, what I've started doing the past 2 years, here's where I failed miserably, is I feel like it's really easy for me to stop with the alcohol for 100, 125 days now. But I started adding things. So this year and last year, I added pizza. I've got a real problem with pizza. I'm not going to lie.
It's my kryptonite too, man. I can down a whole pie in 1 sitting. So bad.
Dude,
so
right?
Bad.
Yeah. Mexican food and pizza, I will eat till I'm sick.
Yes.
So I threw pizzas in, right? So the first 30 days of this, I started back in October, I think, end of October or something. Yeah. So I threw in pizzas, right? I said 30 days, no pizza at all. 30 days after that, I can only have homemade pizza. I don't know why I came up with these arbitrary rules, but I did. I failed that. And then last year, I threw in cherry Pepsis. I've got a natural affinity for those things. Failed that. So if I ever have to have an intervention or a one-on-one, it will probably be pizza and cherry Pepsi.
Well, let me know when you get close to that. I'll join you.
You know what? I might have to just lean into the pizza thing, but my point is be proactive if you can. Now I could turn around and have a severe, I don't know what my mental health will do down the road.
Sure.
Right. So I feel like I should prep for it. That's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think about how it affects my family and all that. Like you said, you don't want to come home, in the bag and have your kids see you like that. And smell it on you when even if you're not physically, visually drunk, but
right.
You don't want your kids to smell that on you all the time. You don't want them to equate that with daddy or mommy coming home. So I know we took a long rabbit hole on this one, but I believe it's something we need to talk about because you're right. I mean, I don't know a ton of firemen that don't drink.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't.
We can end on this one too if you want before transition. But how many times we got mad at that drunk driver that killed an innocent family member?
Exactly. How can we justify?
The night we get off shift, what are we doing?
Yep.
Just another thing to consider. Let's not be hypocrites about it. And I think you mentioned it very well. It's in excess. If you have that excessive problem to where if you mention beer, alcohol, cold wine, let's just say 20 times in one day, what are you really thinking about? What is your body really craving because you constantly keep bringing that up versus something else completely different? I heard that from my pastor once. He said out from the mouth is what, dwells inside your heart that you really admire and want and crave. So what you speak is obviously what your internal intentions are, what you hold near and dear to you. So if you hear people constantly talking about alcohol and this and that and that and this, that could potentially be a red flag. Like, hey, man, there's one thing about enjoying a drink every now and then, but you talk about it a lot every time we're on tour. Everything good?
Yeah.
There's just different little things to consider.
Oh, absolutely. Abso-flippin-lutely. I remember years and years ago, I would get the non-alcohol beer, right?
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the crap out of that. There's some of them that taste just like beer. If you get a Heineken 0.0,
I've never tried a non-alcoholic, but I didn't know if it was same or.
Yep. Absolutely. It's the same thing. So, like, if I was on call, here's what triggers me for alcohol, especially beer. I don't drink mixed drinks.
Sure.
I'll drink margaritas once a year. Me and my wife go to the beach. We always get these same strawberry jalapeno margaritas. It's like a
Ooh, that
thing. I
sounds
don't know.
good.
I'm not a
Actually,
mixed drink person. It's pretty good.
the flavor
But the
sounds good.
beer, man, you have a nice warm day and a cold beer. That's something. So, but if I was on call for doing, I'm the training officer, but I also used to do arson investigation on the side, like on call. I mean, um, and I would, it'd be a nice warm day, and I wanted to sit outside and have a beer, but I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
I would get one of those near beers, those fake beers, and most of them are kind of garbage. But the Heineken 00 tastes just like a Heineken. Can't tell the difference. But the all-time winner was St. Pauli Girls non-alcoholic.
Interesting.
Can't tell. Matter of fact, yeah, it's almost like you get a buzz from drinking it because your brain's like, oh, this is actually beer. But those times, it was perfect for sitting outside. Now you don't down those like beers. You drink real
Sure.
beer, you put 10 in your guts before you know it. You drink a near beer, you're kind of like after two, you're like, ugh.
But hey, you could have just given someone some help on that if they were just kind of thinking, okay, well, let's try that then. Maybe that
Yep.
might help
That's why I like
wing
sharing
it
this
out
stuff.
and
Yeah.
bring it back under control a little bit. That's a good point.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think you can. And more importantly, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Right.
It's not who you are now may not be who you really truly are. I know people that have had trouble with drugs and alcohol and, every addiction, you can name all the addictions. And I think I know people that have not only beat those successfully, but have a better life without them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's something you got to think about. You don't want it to sneak up on you, man. You don't want your family to say, hey, buddy, listen, we got to talk about this.
Yeah.
Don't put your friends and family in that position where they have to
Yeah.
have that talk.
Again, preventative
Try to
maintenance.
take control of it. Preventive maintenance,
Yeah.
brother. I love it. I love it. All right. I, I didn't mean to go down that rabbit hole, but I
Are
love
you
talking
good?
about this stuff. But I do want to talk to you about the Rogue Tailboard. So how
Sure.
you entered my universe was the Rogue Tailboard. Tell us about the Rogue Tailboard, because I know it is a Facebook group and it is a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell us a little bit about like where that came from and what you talk about on it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was real meant for personal reasons than it was to try and establish a platform to reach masses, And
Mm-hmm.
when I first started in the fire service, I had the advice given to me from a company officer that was like, you know what, just nerd out on this stuff. I entered when I was in my early 30s, like 29, 30. So I had a lot of life experience, but now God gave me the calling to be a fireman. So to me, that was like, man, here we go. Not even 2 weeks ago, I was cleaning up general construction messes. Now I'm putting on bunker gear, and I'm a fireman. This is awesome. So much to learn. Well, sometimes you may not have those crews or those people you're stationed with. And I was a unique case out the gate because we're a combination department that's steadily growing. But when I first got hired on, I was Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. or 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. to help,
Mm-hmm.
supplement volunteer calls. So I was like a banker fireman, so to say. I was like, well, we'd always get different people. That was my assigned station, but other people would fill in the slots. And so there wasn't that crew rapport, that crew cohesion. This like, hey man, this is what we're gonna do. We'll check the trucks off, just kind of get through the day. We're gonna go home tonight. If you want to train on something, bring it out. Yeah, we'll middle with it. We'll get along with it, but we're gonna talk, and we talk the crap out of some tactics, which is good to an extent, but sometimes we need to put the actions behind. So throughout
Right.
all that time frame, like, there's got to be more to this. Like, I was just hungry. And the company officer came in once. He said, just nerd out on this. He said, there's so many different avenues on Facebook. This is back in 2020 and 2019 area. He said, just get on there and just go find different things. Go when you're at home, the kids are in bed, just go watch different videos on how to force the door or what some good interior firefighting looks like. And he turned me on to Stockton, California, and now I still can't stop watching them. That's a jam up department side note there. But you watch these guys.
They got tons of fires. They
Yeah.
make tons of fires.
Yes. And so you're watching these videos and you're like, holy cow, that could be me like tomorrow. Like that fire could happen. And so the reality started to put in. But now I was like, I need to hold myself accountable to this stuff. And I'm a guy of accountability. I can give it and I can absolutely receive it. I know we know a lot of people that love to give the accountability, but when you try and they try and receive it, they're not about that. They don't want to be corrected,
Yeah.
constructive criticism. So I'm not like
Yeah.
that. I'm open. I want to grow. I want to learn, and that's just how you do it. You got to be receptive to individuals who may see something different. So it's like, all right, about this time, I really started following Fully Involved by Mark Von Appen, and he
Yeah.
was just putting out just gold content, in my opinion. Just like, wow, this is like speaking directly to me. You know, the new guy constantly wanting to get out there, but no one else really wants to. And it's okay if you do it by yourself. And if that's what it is, then if they want to call you a rogue, at least you're a rogue for the right reasons. And I was like, I like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm a tailboard. I'm gonna do the Rogue Tailboard, and I'm just gonna put notes out there, because once you put a note out there on or anything on social media, it takes no time. Someone could read it, screenshot it, whatever, and even if you delete it, you still have the content. You know what I mean? So once it's out there, it's out there. It's like, all right, here we go, man. You really want to get better. You really want to take this seriously. So I just started making self notes. And then I started to make my opinions of different things. Not saying that I'm the grand all know it all, but everyone else is sharing their opinions on the subject matter. Well, I'm going to share my opinion
Mhm.
out there. And maybe I'll revisit that next week and be like, I don't know what you were thinking last week, but this doesn't line up, or something like that, or a great reminder down the road. And a lot of that also stemmed from social media and algorithms and stuff. Facebook was just getting very boring, so I kind of wanted to just create my own content to keep me encouraged as I was learning and moving into the fire service. Well, next thing you know, like a month or two goes by, there's like 1,000 followers. I'm like, holy crap! People really, really are liking this. And
Oh, you
then,
mean 1,000 followers on your Facebook?
yes, on Rogue, just out of nowhere, like I'm a nobody county boy in East Texas, sending self notes to myself or what I believe should become better, or weaknesses or whatever in the fire service that I think we could work on. And it resonates with me. So now all of a sudden there's a lot more people coming in. We got a visitor from our little son here. So sorry for 1 second.
Not a problem.
Hey, bud.
Hey, you do you, brother.
Boo boo.
So while we're taking a couple seconds here, I want to tell you about the Rogue Tailboard. He'd mentioned having 1,000 followers. Right now, the Rogue Tailboard on Facebook has 10,000 followers. And I highly encourage you to go to it and check it out, because the Rogue Tailboard on Facebook is amazing. You get a lot of who's who on here. And so I encourage everybody to go see it. Yeah, you're back. All right. So I was
Hey,
just telling
sorry,
everybody about right now, you got 10,000 followers. You got
man.
some heavy hitters on there, man. It's amazing.
It It is, but at the same time, I can't help but revert back to what my pastor tells us too when we get new members in our church. It's not about the numbers, because everyone's got a story, and every story deserves to be heard.
Mhm.
And I am not that guy that every week I have to put content out there. I am putting myself under stress to put content out there to stay relevant. If it doesn't happen, it
Right.
doesn't happen. If it's nothing that I truly sincere is laid on my heart to share, I'm just not going to share that. And going back to
Right.
what we were talking about before, my 3-year-old showing his little boo boo. He needed a daddy kiss on his boo boo. But family life, man, I love it though. But so it just started to grow really fast, right? And I'm like, what? Why? What's so special about this stuff that people? And then you start getting these personal messages. Hey, that really hit home with me. That really meant the world, that someone else out there feels the same way, or that I'm not alone in this kind of thought process. And I was like, wow, people are really being impacted by my thoughts. And then you have that maturity moment. If anyone has these kind of platforms too or whatnot, they're going to come and listen to your messages. So are you making it about yourself because you want to be somebody? Or are you making it about the fact that there's people that just need guidance, encouragement, or someone to relate with? Which path are you taking? And you have a
Mhm.
responsibility. When you gain a following, you have a responsibility. You now have an extra target on your back, unintentionally or maybe intentionally. I don't know people's
Yeah.
motives, but it's there now. And even in the home department there for a little bit, it's like, well, who's this guy? Who does he think he is, the Rogue Tailboard and stuff like that? And I can't say I don't blame him, but at the same time, do they understand who I am? have they held a 5 minute conversation with me? Or do they just see what you just said, 10,000 followers, so he thinks he's somebody, and now people around the nation want to hear his opinion and stuff. And you can ask any of my crew members, this I'm the same guy, man. I'm just here to have fun, here to learn. It's wild that God blessed me with that, but at the same time, I've met a lot of great individuals. I've met a lot of people that I can call friends from other states that I can call at 3 a.m. and vice versa. And you can have that impact, but what are you going to do with that impact? So the Rogue Tailboard's been a wild journey, and as long as God continues to want to honor it to reach people, awesome. But I'm not going to sacrifice my job. I'm not going to sacrifice my family time or anything to that to make sure that the Rogue Tailboard stays relevant. And that's just how I operate with that.
I love it because it's more of a hobby than you worrying about algorithms for the social media.
Yeah.
It's your passion. It's your
Mm-hmm.
passion. And the truth of it is, you're not going to get mutts listening to the podcast or probably on your Facebook. You're going to surround yourself. And this is great advice for anything you do in your life, not just firefighters. If you surround yourself with good people, it makes you better. Right. So, I see that page and the podcast is just, it's kind of like, my podcast and the people that email me about the stuff that we talk about. I like being surrounded by people that, give a shit about the job.
Yeah.
I see what you got hanging up behind you. And I remember when I reached out to Devin Craig the first time, and, I get a lot of different responses when I ask him to be on the podcast. It's almost always yes, but sometimes it's tell me more, blah, 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 what we're going to talk about. Da, da, da. David Gregg immediately shot back, as long as we can talk about fire shit. That's his exact words. As long as we can talk about fire shit. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this guy's going to be awesome. And I've stayed in touch with Devin, and he's just a fantastic human being. But it goes back to what we're talking about, man. You get to meet people that have your passions. Mm-hmm. You get to learn from them. They get to learn from you. Learning is a two-way street. It's mm-hmm. never a one-way street. And I learned that late in life, becoming a fire instructor. I assumed prior to that it was me telling people stuff, a one-way street. Mm-hmm. That ain't it at all, brother. It is, man, you learn as much as you teach when you're a fire instructor.
Yes.
So it's pretty awesome. Now, what about so go check out the Rogue Tailboard. It's on Apple Podcast. It's also on all major platforms. Check out Facebook, the Rogue Tailboard. It's amazing. I'm telling you what, it's a great way. It's about loving the job, man. And yes. And you read this, you listen to the stuff. If you're not excited, especially after listening to the Rogue Tailboard, I've gotten on the treadmill, and I put on my podcast, and I put on the Rogue Tailboard. I'm like, yeah, all right. I'm gonna put my gear on after this, and do some burpees or something, man. I get excited.
I appreciate that.
But and that would be enough. I think most people would say, you know what, he does enough right now, but that's not it. It's not just the next rung. That could probably be enough for a lot of people, but the next rung in the Facebook page, that could be enough. Then the podcast, then the Uncommon Fireman. You have another private page in Facebook called the Uncommon Fireman. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about that.
So this is in that time. So Rogue Tailboard was starting to gain some traction, right? In the fire service world, mm-hmm. that the citizens will never see, so to say, unless they just type in our pages and start following, like, what's all this stuff? Like, wow, these guys really love the job. That's cool. But so in the fire service world, it was starting to gain some traction, right? Well, in that time, I had a very humbling call to where I was inside a house fire for like maybe 5 minutes. And I sucked my bottle down, and I'm still relatively new on the job. And I'm like, this ain't good, man. Like, how can you do any good? And it's because of my physique and stature. So I was like, I got to do something about that. I don't want to be the guy underneath the shade tree, because I'm whooped after stretching a line and going fighting for 5 minutes. Not to mention the guys inside with was pissed because he had to back out because I was backing out. And then we had to get someone else to quickly go in there to bump in, and we were making good headway. So it was embarrassing, but I'm transparent enough to share that. But what do you do when you find those moments about yourself? Do I wallow in pity? Like, crap, man, maybe this isn't for me, or no, I need to tighten up. So I tightened up. I started taking things more seriously. I started really watching my dieting. I really started to see what this is like working out in gear, just doing hit circuit workouts, flipping a tire, carrying buckets of, calves foam for farmers carry, just different things. And it was something, right? And now Shannon Jimenez, I love the guy to death out of Tifton County in the Georgia area. He was an avid Rogue Tailboard follower, and so we became personal friends. And I saw he was constantly putting these workout posts out. I was like, man, this guy's getting it. Oh, that's a good idea. I want to try that one. I want to try that one. And then Logan Broberg, then Chief Nate Stern from Apopka, Florida. It's a district chief that's dragging a tire in full gear around his neighborhood streets. And I'm like, this guy is
Nice.
committed. And I'm like, wow. All right. So there's more of us out there. And you just start talking. And then I started reaching out to them for tips, tricks, how to recover, what to better on with that. And while that was going on, so I started getting tagged in these workout pace or posts and vice versa.
Hmm.
And then I just kind of out of spite, that was kind of created for the fact that I was once called out. Said, all you're going to do on your Facebook page is just post firefighter workouts and this and that. Like, don't you have a life, bro? And I said, yeah, but my family life is intimate, but this is also part of my life. So it's like, I'm just going to start a private group, kept it private so not everyone and their dog can just come in and spam the crap out of it. Let's keep it pure. We're all here trying to better ourselves. And I was like,
Right.
what's a good way? So at this point in time, I'm still an avid Jocko Willink listener, David Goggins listener.
Yeah.
So, Goggins always talks about being uncommon amongst uncommon people. And so I'm sitting there thinking,
Right.
okay, well, what about uncommon firemen? Because firemen are uncommon in society to begin with. Got my cat trying to mess up. Uh, got, the uncommon in society.
Can you hear me? I think I lost you there. I could see you, but I can't hear you.
All right.
There you
I had a call on my phone, so I'm sorry for the quick edit on that one.
go.
But
Not a problem.
so, anyways, long story short, I really loved the uncommon fireman because, all right, now that you're a fireman, let's be uncommon amongst those groups. And it's not just because I can work out, 5 times a day in gear or anything to that extent, but where are you at morally and ethically? Where are you at trying to really pour into those around you? Are you really a selfless individual that's just trying to better themselves and not bash or banter anyone else that is not? Are you willing to at least be patient and help those people out? And it just started, that's what it came to now. But in the growth stage, so to say, there for a while, it was just like 50 dudes of us that, well, hey, man, you need to get on. Well, my crew member, he loves this stuff too. So there for a while, if you were to scroll all the way down to the start of all this stuff, there's just so much good, tight knit communications of routines and what are you working on this or what's working on that or and just different building each other up to that aspect. And then word just got out. Like it just kind of became a thing. And, brother Ian Schulte created our logo and, oh, that's cool. Let's be proud of it. Let's take full ownership, made some stickers, made some flags, different things, helped send people to some conferences, helped support funds for different things. And then life happens, but it came into where it is now. And we still try and keep it back to its core values of just staying true to the job, staying true to yourself. And yes, we want to better ourselves, but how good are you if you don't test yourself? So okay,
Right.
well now how do we find ways to test ourselves without it being a fire service call? Well, there's programs that are out there that will really show you where you truly stand. And, that could be like a report card for your performance. And then you go back and you keep milling away and you complete the program, then you carry on. I mean, there's all different kinds of things that were good that came out of that. And we haven't went public per se a whole lot outside of that group, but we're working on our own program ourselves to where it incorporates the kind of workouts you see on our page. And then it's just round the clock fireman skills and scenarios. And we're not charging anything for it, but it's still in the building stage. We're fine tuning, tweaking. And
Hmm.
it's going to be a great thing. Got some great dudes that really helped me out on that to get it rolling and up and going. And we're hoping that it will be a place for firefighters to learn about themselves, to start getting introduced to what training with a little bit of stress feels like without having to
Yes.
feel like it's this very elite level, so to say. But you're going to get tested. You're going to see where you're at. Can I even, compose myself when I'm tired? And now I just got to throw a basic ladder, but I'm tired. Different things like this. Or
Right.
now I've got to go search for live victims, but I'm tired. And it's a completely different training mindset versus, hey guys, what do you want to do today? Let's work on victim jags. Okay, well, go ahead and get your bunker pants on. I'll see you out in the bay. And we're going to jag a couple times and call it training.
Yeah. Bunker pants, helmet. That's it.
Yeah. So not saying it's not bad. That's definitely like a crawl, walk, run. But after you've been crawling for a couple of tours, let's start to walk. Let's start to run. And then let's build off of that. Get crazy, throw some Vaseline on your legs with just gym shorts on and see how well you can grip them. You hear a lot of the greats, like you said, Devin Craig and others that are introducing these concepts. And all it takes the average firefighter to do is just to get outside their bubble. Devin Craig has a class that talks about that too. Get outside of your little 10-mile radius. See what the rest of the American fire service is doing. Just because they're in New York or Texas or Kansas does not mean that the fundamental values of a fireman differ. Tactics and construction changes, sure, but the fundamental values that make a fireman, let's work on those. Let's get great at those.
Yeah, it's I think it was I took an extrication class from Isaac Frazier, who is in Wichita, Kansas, I believe, into the symposium, into the fire, was it into the job symposium? Yeah. So what he had us do was we had all our gear on for this extrication, but he had us do a bunch of push-ups and jumping jacks to get our heart rate up. Mm-hmm. And then he would give us the tools. And the reason for that is to add a little stress, a little physical stress, because when you do that, you'll notice that some of your fine motor skills are not as good as they should be. You're a little extra tired, but then that's when you go to work, right? There's very few times you're going to do the job and you're going to be so well rested, so well fed, so well just happy. It's never going to be that way. You're a human being. You're going to be under some type of stress, whether you show it or not. So I think it's a great thing. And I think, was it John Spira is always posting, doing all these burpees and stuff with his gears on. And I'm like,
that's another founding father of the fire fitness in my book, man. It was one of the first ones I was following. She was like, wow, this gentleman with his age and stature, not a knot, because age is nothing but a number. Just look at him and you can see that. Just that gives you hope. That gives you hope as a 23-year-old. Look, I can be in my mid-40s and still kill it. But how do I do that? Mm-hmm. Maintaining, recovering. I mean, it's a discipline. It absolutely is a discipline. But
you're exactly right. I love it. It is a discipline, and I think, and you can tell me I'm wrong, but I think the number one thing is consistency.
Yes.
You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. Being consistent with your workout, because I don't care how good you are at something. If you work out once every blue moon, you're not going to get better. Right. Mm-hmm. But having that, like for me, it's always in the morning. I don't know. I got a friend of mine that would go to the gym at 9:00 at night. I don't know how that's even, he's probably an alien. I don't think that's right, but I've got to do everything in the morning. If I'm not, there's zero chance, and I mean zero, as dedicated as I am, at 11:00 in the afternoon that I will ever go to the gym. Sure. Ever. It just won't happen. So I have to, I've for years and years and years and years, it's always, as soon as I wake up, I have my coffee, I go to the gym. Mm-hmm. And it's that consistency. Am I killing it every time? No. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't. Winter, I struggle. I struggle hard in winter. Yep. Oh my God. But anyway, I agree. I love it. It's a discipline. And you know what you said that I really like? Here's what and you're not the only person to do that. Talk about, you were struggling. You said, hey, I got to get better. You didn't say you wanted to get better because you wanted to look better in clothes or be better attractive to your wife, whatever it is.
Sure.
You want to do it because you want to do your job better.
Exactly.
You have a citizens first mentality, right? Mm-hmm. And I love that about you. And I think that's fantastic because in all honesty, I know if you ask a lot of firefighters, are like, what's the number one thing? Like, oh, me and my crew. And that's great. Mm-hmm. Our number one thing is community. It's taking care of our citizens. Now, if you do that right, you automatically take care of you and your crew. I mean, that's just all there is to it. But I love that idea that, hey, I've got to do my job. I got to serve my community better. I'm not doing as well as I can. And I've gone through that myself several times. It's kind of an ebb and flow thing. I've done, like I said, 30 years in the fire service. I have ups and downs. But I love that when you said that, it wasn't like you were all about you. You were doing it because you wanted to do your job better. And I think that speaks volumes to your character.
I
And I
appreciate
got to be
it.
honest with you, character is not something that is discussed very often in the fire service. They hide behind words like culture and all that and generation stuff.
Yeah, I'm
But
pretty sure we're all
character is
aware of
important.
the. I'm sure we're all aware of the buzz trending words that are heavily talked about within the servers. But you're right. But also with that character, those that don't know somebody but may have heard of somebody, do they truly know who they are, or are they just going from someone else's perspective? Because that
Right.
person could be genuine, or there could be some jealousy, there could be some envy, or there can be some better than now type of perspective. And now he's telling his buddy about that person. And like, oh, well, if that's what so and so says about him, it's got to be true. And then they never find out for
Yeah.
themselves, hey, this guy ain't what he's talking about. So whatever's between them is not between us. And it's just trying to break that.
Yeah, I failed. I failed that way. I have failed so many times where somebody's told me something about somebody and I believed them because I respect the person telling me. I'm like,
Right.
oh, he's saying this guy's a big pile of farts. I'm going to believe that. I'm going to treat this guy accordingly. Whereas if I was a grown man in charge of my own life, and I would just treat them how they treat me, basically.
Sure.
Learn about the people. And I look back, especially when I was younger, doing that, trying to fit in, and I just didn't. I screwed up, man. I screwed up. But that's right. I like that because you're right. Because what if it's the guy telling you something? Maybe the guy he's talking about owes him money or said something about his mom or kicked
Right.
his dog or whatever it is. It's always going to be biased. And if true character is judging people on how they interact with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And oh gosh, I failed on that miserable.
And
I
I've
mean, I'm
learned
not
the
married
same
twice
lesson.
because I'm perfect.
Hey,
What?
I'm there with you, but I've been the victim of it, but I've also been the guy doing it too, and I've learned. So I was like, all right, well, that's not the case. And so you can say what you
Right,
want about them. Don't try and sway me, but I'm going to vet. If they're going to be involved in my personal life, or if that's going to be a person that I'm going to really seek information from, I want to know the source a little bit, yes. But again, I'm after the message, not the messenger, when it comes to someone that's not going to be involved in my daily life and my daily routines. So just
right.
can't always go off of somebody's word just because they said something about someone.
No, you're absolutely right. And I tell you what, think about this, and you can think everybody that's listening, think about this later. Just plant the seed now, and just be honest with yourself. Don't share it with anybody, but think about what you, as a firefighter that's been on for a while, would tell day one firefighter you what pitfalls to avoid, how not to act. Because if you're anything like me, it would be volumes of stuff like don't do this, don't say that, don't think of this guy this way, da 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 da. If you can be honest with yourself, and the whole point of that exercise is chances are you're going to be honest with yourself, and that's going to make you, if you need to make any changes, that can hopefully inspire you to make some of these changes. Because I look back at what I would tell myself 30 years ago, holy cow, man, I tell you what, I'd be something else today. But that's just one way to try to improve yourself in the fire
Absolutely.
service. um, Now there's one thing we didn't get so here's how I envisioned this podcast going.
Okay.
We would be about the 20-minute mark right now, but we're at
Hmm.
about the hour mark, right?
You're a fun guy to
I've
talk with, man. I'm loving this. It's a good
Brother,
time.
same. No, yeah, no, that's exactly my point, man. I feel like we're at the firehouse and there's
Hmm.
no runs right now. We're just sitting out in the bay talking. That's
Yep.
exactly what this feels like, and we have so much in common on this. But the one thing I did want to talk about, and I did not know this till I did a little research, is your involvement with Firemall Tools. Now, Firemall Tools, for those who don't know, are awesome. They
Hmm.
are they're made for firemen, man. They're made. You're not gonna hurt these things. And but I was hoping as we're getting closer to wrapping up,
Sure.
I would love to. I want these people to know how awesome Firemall tools are. Can you tell me a little bit about them? And I want to tell you the ones I want you to give me for free. How's that?
we'll talk to we'll talk to the boss Mitch first on that one. But no, man, it's great. And I'm gonna paraphrase a little bit, but I've talked to Mitch Jr. He's one of my original guests on my podcast too. There's so much valuable information on tools, and he gets very scientific with it as well in that episode. So do feel free to hear that. He hasn't been on a lot of different podcasts, which is, one thing or another, but the man is brilliant and it shows in his product. he was a trucker. He still is a truckie with Chicago, and kept using the same, Ace hardware store, local hardware store, axes and malls or whatnot for the job. And he's like,
Yep.
there's got to be something better. And so then, the 3-piece Halligans to the pro bars, and that is a driven man that also wants to see the job better. And what can I do to make my job easier? At the same time, I'm a fireman and I've got to bow up and put out it sometimes. So some of the tools might need a little extra weight to get the job done, but you can overcome that by working out a little bit, get ready for the job, right? So with that little
Right.
side tangent though, he's made tools that no little detail has been left unchecked.
That
Never
person
fails,
does not
man.
like Devin Craig's flag.
That never fails. There's always something in the Snow household. But no, he is not left stone unturned, so to say, with creating these tools for the job, specifically for us. With the striking, he's now using forged American steel to create these products. He's doing everything he can to keep it in-house, to keep it in America for the American Fire Service, and it's
Love it.
brilliant. I do
Love
have
it.
one of the original fire mauls that came out, the mauler, and that was
Hmm.
when it was still kind of casted, but to a really great extent. Pardon the distraction behind me. We'll just keep rolling.
Oh, that's quite all right.
Just wanted
I've got
to
7 cats.
pass
7
it.
cats.
Well, that was a.
So
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say. So I empathize. No problems there with the cat. None.
To be so cliche, is that was a rescued from the firehouse during a storm, and none of the local shelters wanted it, so the family fell in love with it, and she was hiding in the bed when I closed the door, so now she's here with us. But
Well, what's her name? What's her name?
Spade, she's an all black cat, so we just called her Spade, like the ace of spades. So
Oh, nice,
yeah,
nice.
Spade. She's
We got one of those all black cats too.
so. But yeah,
So
go ahead.
they're
He's
they're
doing great
solid.
things.
They're solid made. They're awesome. I'm looking at them. I've seen them in person. I've held these tools before. The one that I haven't actually had in my hand is the Reaper. That thing looks awesome. The Chicago ads, bro. I love that Chicago ads.
Me too.
But if I'm looking at this stuff, I mean, you can tell it's made by a firefighter for a firefighter. But something that you don't see a lot of people putting effort into is the handles.
Yeah.
These handles are amazing. Tell us about that.
So the composite handle he has, a lot of people are like, well, what's the flex on that? Because I'm afraid if I really got to start prying and stuff like that, it's just going to snap. Is it kind of like a hybrid of fiberglass and composite? And that's what I love about Mitch. He hears the concerns. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna drop a video about it. So he put one of the composite handle maulers in a vice grip going horizontally, and he is jumping up and down that thing like it's a trampoline. He's like, it doesn't break, and then he cut the video out. So he's like, where's your excuses at? These tools are designed for us, okay? So let's quit buying the local hardware stuff and let's buy the stuff that legitimately fits without it being like a Swiss Army knife type tool that has multiple heads and points for different jobs or tasks on the job. Let's keep it simple. This is a striking tool. What can we use to make the striking tool the best? It's got its shouldered beveled edges, so that way it prevents from slipping into your composite tarred roofs. It's got the little bit of a bird's beak at the end, so when you rear back, it actually gains you another half inch of a bite, so to say, when you're making your strikes. It's just incredible. And then with his
I,
TSR Halligans and stuff, it's the same way. Big striking heads on that stuff. You can force doors. We know you can force doors with the pry bar, but also at the same time, if you just need that moment to where you just need to beat your way out of a door, or you're having a hard time trying to get a purchase point with the door, and you just want to turn around and just slam the back of the head onto the doorknob and force it that way, you can do it. So he's brilliant with it, and they
I'm
work.
looking at the TSR set, basically the irons for
Yep.
us, right? And I want these guys looking at it. I tell you what, I'm pretty excited about it. I'm going to put this link in the description down there. So I want people to go check this out because I'm looking at the prices too. These are extremely affordable and
They
they're
are.
well made. Look at these things.
They really are.
Yeah. I like that Reaper though. I'm not gonna lie. I
Yes,
have
my
no reason.
driver,
I'm retired now, so I don't need it. But I want it. Is that wrong? Like
my
just like
driver got a
the
Reaper.
Lockwood hook. I want that. I'm
Yep.
sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say my driver's got the Reaper, and so each member of our crew, we're a 4-man engine company where I'm at, and we got 3 Maulers and 1 Reaper on that engine during our shift because of how much they work, and they're just built for the job. You see another Texan brother, Kevin Lewis. He's a truckie out of the Dallas Fire Department. He shows and believes in it too, and he's got other reps around America too that help, you know, promote the good word of the Fire Mall tools and how they're tried and true. And it's just been a big advocate for him. You know, when I was first
Right.
starting out, I asked my company officer when I finally got under a command of somebody, it's like, what is a good tool for a tailboard? Me in the back, what is a good tool? Because I see all these things. I want to get good. What do I need? He just kind of sat around and said, I've always liked the mall. And I said, why the mall? And this is before a fire mall. This is just, he's talking about going to Home Depot and getting a split mall. And I was like, why is
Yeah.
that? And he said, if I need to get through something, I can turn around. I got a sledgehammer. I can bash through it. Or if I need to cut through something, I've got my sharp edge. I can just cut through it. And I said, makes sense. So I went to Home Depot like that night after shift and got me a Husky maul from Home Depot. And then that turned into scrolling through social media. I saw this fireman up there on a roof just giving it hell, and it said vent enter demolish. And I said, ooh, I like that. And so I clicked on it. And it's him, Mitch Huner, just showing everything that this thing can do. And he's putting side by side videos of a 8-pound, 6-pound flathead axe next to the mauler and the time it takes just to go through a piece of, 1.75 inch plywood. And you're like, I need that. That's what I need.
Yep.
So I had a lieutenant gift me that, and I've been bragging about it any chance I can to use it. When I first got it, I was showing it off, and of course that gained another loving rapport in the fire service. Oh, he's got his own, all that. Well, then they're like, hey, let me try that thing. Let me try that one. Let me see what that works like. And now it's kind of married to me in a funny manner, just because that's something I believe in, man. And it's okay if you
Yeah.
disagree, but this is what works great for me, and I love it, so I'm standing beside it. And it's getting a lot more recognition. The downfall is there's such a high demand. He's having a tough time sticking up to the demand just because where they're getting forged to manufacturers. It's not solely proprietary for Fire Mall tools. There's other companies that this place is making forged steel products for. So he's working on great solutions for that. It's not my place to speak on that, but there's great things in the
Mhm.
work coming with Fire Mall tools in the near future. And there's new style grip kits coming out there as well. Some that are not that hard cast, but it's also a lot more durable because anything he puts out there, he's tested it any way, shape, or form possible. So it's still very superior to the old nasal cannula hockey tape technique because this stuff's actually going to last. If that's all you got, that's fine. But
Nasal cannula hockey tape. I've seen that.
you know
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about.
It's so
Yes,
fun.
it's
Yeah, I know
it's
exactly.
been
You
there.
got the fire wrap though. You'll have the fire wrap
Exactly.
that is basically the real deal, durable, gonna
Yes.
gonna last.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
made for us. It's not made for sport on ice. Let's
yeah.
use what's made for us. It's for a reason. And so, but
Well,
no, he's
I
doing great
I
things.
do want to put out too. Not only am I not getting paid by Fire Mall, at no time did you ask me to bring up Fire Mall. This is
Sure.
all my own doing. And the reason I like doing this is because I love stuff that is made for us by us. And
Hmm.
I want to help any and every brother and sister out there that is doing everything they can to make our job easier to save more and more citizens. So I know people out there probably going, oh, yeah, I wonder how much he's getting paid. I'm not getting paid nothing, bro. I'm telling you, it's
Neither am
quality
I,
shit. Look
man.
at it.
I don't. I
Yeah,
don't
see?
make. You know how much money I made off the Rogue Tailboard?
What's that?
$0.
Zero?
I don't do the sponsorships. I'm not in it for the extra money. God's blessed me with provision here at the home. This is just like you said, something fun, make it enjoyable. Now it's got some meat and merit, so there's is a little bit of that obligation. But I said, God, if this is never when your time for this to be done and it's done, just make it very clear and got zero problems, stepping away from it. It's not gonna that does not define who I am, if that makes sense. So it's just something fun
Right.
that's along with the fire service too. If it has a positive impact, awesome. And same with the tool. Us reps, we get a little, I say a little, but we just get a small, commission percentage. But I think my last year's sales earned me a Chicago ads. So it's not like I'm making rich and just have to keep pushing this so I can drive a Lamborghini at home. It's an awesome tool.
Yeah.
You know, it does the job. Just consider it.
Yeah.
Just consider it. And so
Oh yeah,
I feel
I'll
like,
have a link on there too, so they can see it. Because I mean, if you don't have a good tool, if you got the cheaper tools, I mean, poor tools will yield poor results.
yes,
I
they
mean,
do.
that's just science, right? So good, solid tools are always going to help. And I know I'm a huge fan of Leatherhead tools. Big shout out to Ty and Mike. Uh, but again, solid tools. These are made very, very well.
Yeah.
Um, with that, brother, I tell you what, I'm going to wrap up here, but I
Sure.
do like to end the same way every time, and that's I need to know what's the best firehouse prank that you've played on somebody or have had played on you.
So our crew, when you ask us like, oh man, we prank each other so many times. Which ones can I truly
Tell
share?
on
Yes,
podcast. Yeah.
because we love to get each other a lot. Jake, my driver, man, anytime we're out in public and we're going into a store or grocery run or whatnot, you think I'd learn to walk behind the engine by now, but he'll wait at the right moment and he'll hit me with that air horn and I'll like
Oh,
jump to my knees and everyone laughs. We do little things like that a lot. Um, so my current battalion chief too, when he first came, because our station houses the battalion chief, and he's a big prankster. He likes the pranks, and he's they were sharing prank stories one night. I was like, I really don't have any prank stories, y'all. So I'm not that guy. I'll laugh at him and stuff like that, but I'm not that clever to dedicate time to this and that. And so what he said, Snow, we're gonna get you pranking people. By the end of this career, you're gonna have pranked everyone in the county. I said, all right, chief. So I'm sitting there. I was like, you know what? He's gonna be my first victim. So I sat there. He was out making his station runs, and I got his pillow, and I used a whole thing of Saran wrap. So I got his pillow to be like the size of a softball. Yeah, I just start off on little things like that with him, right? Or he's a Marine veteran, so on his whiteboard in his office, I'd write, "I love Navy more. I just won't admit it," or just stuff like that, poking with him. And he'd laugh and smile, but he wouldn't tell me about it. He came home at that one day after this rat's pill, and he's like, "I guess my pillow shrank, guys," and we all just kind of snickered like little kids, right? Well, one day, this is probably the best one because he got me on mental warfare. So we're sitting there, and we're gonna have this part-time guy that was gonna come to our shift because one of our guys had to go on a training on our second day of tour, so we had a vacancy to fill. And he had it played out to where it's gonna be like this brand new proby rookie who was gonna be stepped up in the seat, and I had to be the tailboard, and it was just he painted out to be like this catastrophe of a tour the next day, right? And he just like, there's nothing we could do about it. And I said, but we don't allow the part timers to step up to full time authority. So I was like, this ain't making sense. And then one of my crew members said, well, just call the other chief who's over, the scheduling, just see what's up on that. Well, he was in on it too. And so I called him and was like, hey, chief, I just see, and I'm hearing, just curious about it. Was there no one else or any other way? And he's like, I really can't talk about it right now, and just hung up on it. So like, all right, maybe he's busy.
Oh.
And so he called my other battalion chief because again, they're in on this together. And he said, absolutely. He said, excuse me, gentlemen, I got to step outside. And as he's walking outside, he said, I'll address him with that directly right now. And I'm like, what's going on? Whatever. So I don't really pay attention to station gossip. So it was like in one ear, out the other. So he comes back in and he's like, Snow, I need to see you in the bay. I said, okay. So my other crew members are walking out there and he's telling them, do not blow this, do not laugh, but we're going to get snow. And so they're all out there and it was like we talked about earlier, an intervention moment. I'm like, what's up, chief? He said, did you directly go behind me in the chain of command to talk to the scheduling chief about who's going to be stepping up tomorrow and the concerns of the man? And just like reared on about it. And like, chief, my bad. I didn't mean any problem by it or anything like this. It was just inquiring minds. And he said, you were given a directive. That's what you're going to follow in a discussion. So he just kept it going. And then when it was finally just me and the crew, and Jake's my boy, and I'm sitting there, we're driving back from a call, and I'm stepped up driver. I looked at him and said, so are we going to talk about what just happened in the bay or not? And he just turned and looked out the window. Like he wouldn't even talk to me. And I'm like, these guys know something that I don't. And so I just started sweating it bad. And finally the morning time came around and Chief woke me up at like 6 a.m. earlier than normal for our shift assignments. He said, so-and-so's here. He needs help looking over the rig and all this stuff. And I was like, this dude's been to the station multiple times. He should know the rig by now. But yes, Chief. So I'm getting and he's like, Snow, it's okay to smile. And I just give him that straight face look, hair's a mess. And I go outside to the bay. No one's around. His truck's not even outside. And when I walk back in, they're just belly laughing. I said, that was good, Chief. That was good. So lesson learned, I'm not going to prank my battalion chief because he'll go to extreme levels and make it like hurt, so to say. So
I was going to say, that's a pretty advanced, getting a lot of people involved in that one.
But our county is good like that too, though. We have a good culture. If we're on a call and we've got another station coming to our house to cover our area while we're in our neighboring district for whatever reason, all the cabinets will be open, all the recliners will be upside down, all the matches will be stacked on each other, and you'll have a note that says like "I love you." So like we're always having fun with each other. But man, that battalion chief, he knows how to take it to another level. So I was like, all right, you win. I'm done. I'm done pranking you.
Well, that's just it too. When a chief is involved, a chief officer is involved, then it's kind of harder to get them back. Yeah. I think that gives them a little leeway to be a little more creative with their screwing with the people. I love it. They can
flirt some paperwork. I mean, they can really sell it to you. And you're just like, crap, I'm sorry, man. This is not where I thought this was going. But it makes a good time. You can definitely make the job enjoyable.
Well, let me ask you this before we go. Sure. I meant to ask you this earlier. If I want to hear Chris Snow talk, if I want to learn some stuff that he's got his hands in, how can I find you?
I appreciate that. I really don't think I'm somebody special other than just having good conversations with. I hope everyone's staying up to date with their tactics and bettering themselves. But, I got the Rogue Tailboard that's out there. I've got Instagram, the Rogue Tailboard. My personal Facebook page is there as well. Easy to just direct message from there. And then, just don't be afraid to reach out. My number is 903-508-1100. I've had all the pranks. It's no big deal on that. But if you really just need someone, I will honestly answer for you. But shoot me a text first, because if it's an unknown area in the code, it probably ain't going to get answered. We got enough spam where people worrying about, extended car insurance and stuff like that. So if you shoot me a text, let me know that you're you, and we can have a conversation, talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Brother, I appreciate you being on here. This has been an excellent way for me to spend my morning. I hope you enjoyed it. And everybody, listen, remember the challenge. You have to get a hold of Next Rung and donate a couple bucks. I want to see how many people out there are actually going to do it. Email me after you do it. Let me know so I can do it too. I want to at least donate way more than anybody else, so I got to wait till everybody gives me their money. Now, if they donate more than $4, then I might be screwed. I don't have a lot of money. So. All right, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, you stay right there. We're going to wrap it up.
Sure.
I appreciate you being on, brother.
Hey, no problem.
Today's podcast was sponsored by Fire Facilities, industry-leading designers and manufacturers of realistic, built-to-last training structures for more than 30 years. Make your training count. Visit firefacilities.com for more information.